Hey guys! So today we are going to talk a little bit about long-term planning and something that I think is very important for you to consider when you start out being a programmer. So let's get into it. So yesterday I had this amazing comment from a subscriber of mine who reached out and told me a really heartwarming story about how he, believe it or not, had actually taken my advice on something way quite a while back, and to give you a bit of context, basically the decision he had faced was to work for a company who was developing basically an SDK type of application, or working on an API that was going to be consumed by a few other teams. And the other company that he had an option working for was a standard CRUD application, full stack development, the normal boilerplate stuff that most of us actually do in the industry. And so we got to talking a little bit about this, and he asked for my opinion, and I said, you see, the thing is that when you're just starting out, it's, in my personal opinion, a very good idea to go with the boring, obvious thing. The reason why that is very good is because when you work, say, as a full stack developer in this scenario on a CRUD application, that is most in line with what most of us software web developers are doing on a daily basis. That's most of what our job is about. But working on the highly specialized solution may be a little bit sexier. The problem is when you, as a beginner, go down that route, is that you will not get exposure to the basics of the industry, if you will. You will learn a very specialized thing, but you will not get the sort of standard education or the standard training that most of us actually get. Now, why is this a problem? Well, you see, I'm going to tell you what I told him. You cannot be a junior forever. I know, right? It seems weird. You thought that being a senior is all rainbows and unicorns, right? But it's not, because when you get to have a certain level of experience within the industry, that is going to show on your CV. Now think about that. If you have spent most of your career working in a highly specialized way, maybe, and this is, I've made so many videos about this, guys. I've told so many people this, like, if you want to be an email developer, that's fine. You can do that if you want to, or you want to work with Jira, or you want to be some type of front-end hybrid sort of person who only works in a very specific way with a very specific thing. All right, that's all great. That's all great. Just do that. But you should be aware of something, and that is that it doesn't really matter what you want to work with at this point in time if the thing that you are working with is not what is considered to be normal in the industry. That's why it's very important for you to have a good guys, I know I tell you a lot of stuff, but remember, most of the stuff that I'm telling you has very little to do with what I personally prefer. I'm just relaying what I see the companies out there in the world asking for and how they work, because that's the important thing. Because if you are working in a highly specialized way and you want to work at one of these other companies, they are going to have a few thoughts on where you are in your career. And that's the important part here, because as I said, when you get to a certain level of experience, if you have 5-10 years of experience on your CV and you come into a job interview, remember, your level of experience is going to be considered when you apply for that position. And what happens if you then come in and you have worked in this extremely highly specialized way, where you have from the company's perspective, you have fairly severe gaps in your knowledge about just everyday software development. This is a way for you to very quickly find that you are almost unemployable. You may have the years, but you do not have the relevant experience to reflect those years. And that's why I gave this advice to this subscriber, that it is vital for you to really, really leverage this time that you have as a junior. I know that the first job is scary, guys, but your natural instincts may tell you to jump at any opportunity that you get. And maybe that is right for you. I can't really tell you if that's right or wrong, but I can tell you that if you start out your first 5 years going down the wrong route, that may actually come back and bite you in the ass. Because, as I said, after a little while, when you apply for jobs and your employers and so forth, they will expect you to have a certain level of mastery within the industry. And if the job that you have right now, the job that you're getting, the job that you're paid to do, is pushing you down a route that is very unconventional or very kind of decoupled from how most companies how they work, that may actually be a really big problem for you. As I said, you may find that you come in having worked for 5 years, sit down at a table and you don't get any jobs because the stuff, like, people expect you to know more than you do. Just off the bat, that you simply do not have the skills necessary. I can give you a great example of one such scenario where I actually used to know this person. I went to school with this person. He had worked as a web designer for several years. And the way that he had been working was that he worked for a fairly small-sized ads company, and his job was in essence to just make fairly static websites. He did all of this without any training, without any prior knowledge and so forth. He was self-taught, and he used Dreamweaver to do that. But when he finally started doing like proper software development, he realized that by working in this very specific manner, he had no understanding of how to actually do something without having Dreamweaver auto-generate all the HTML and the CSS and so forth. That's a good example of how things can go. And I mean that he could know, even though he had been working for years within this field, he could not apply for any other job virtually, because it is such a the way that he had been working was so highly specialized and so very peculiar for that specific company that he was unemployable anywhere else. And that's what I want you to take away from this, guys. When it comes to having job security within the industry, as a junior, you should really consider the long term. You should really think about your first couple of jobs, at least the first and the second and whatever. The first years within your education, you should really, really try your best to learn the basics of the industry first. Because if you go into highly specialized work too early, you may find that you get gaps in your base knowledge of how to do software development. And that is something that can affect how people perceive you once you get to be a senior, because seniors have higher demands on them than juniors. And that's the benefit that you have, guys. As a junior, you are allowed to be a beginner. As a junior, you're allowed to not know everything, but it is also vital for you to learn the right things at that time, because once you get to be a senior, people are less forgiving with you. They have higher expectations of you, and it's important for you then to be able to live up to those expectations. Have a great day.